You've been taught that being smart means showing it, that intelligence is a badge, something to flash, something to prove. But the moment you seek to prove your intelligence, you reveal your deepest weakness, the need to be seen. In your world, intelligence is mistaken for visibility. The louder you sound, the more impressive you think you are. You craft long answers, correct people publicly, show off knowledge like a peacock showing feathers. And, like the peacock, you make yourself a target. This is your first mistake. Real intelligence, the kind that alters rooms, manipulates people, and accumulates power, does not shine. It disappears. It buries itself in silence. It hides behind smiles, and it waits for the moment others make a mistake. That is why the most dangerous people often seem stupid. You see them in meetings, staying quiet while others compete to sound smart. You see them in relationships, allowing themselves to be underestimated. You see them nodding, smiling, fading into the background. They let others dominate the room. They let others speak first, bleed first, reveal first. And by the time you've emptied your thoughts into the air, they have already calculated how to use them. This isn't humility. This is strategy. Machiavelli said a wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men, and to imitate those who have been supreme. But the supreme ones, they never let you know they were watching. They never give you the pleasure of knowing they understood. And that's how they win. Because intelligence in itself is not power. Intelligence revealed is liability. It is when others know the extent of your mind that they begin to prepare for it. So, the smartest among you, they do something that most men never consider. They pretend not to know. They feign ignorance. They lower their status in the eyes of others, on purpose. You'll think they're naive. You'll think they're harmless. You'll give them information you would never reveal to an equal. You'll insult them without caution. You'll invite them into rooms because you think they won't be a threat. And that's exactly what they wanted. You believe deception is loud. But the most powerful kind is passive, invisible. The art of faking stupidity, when executed well, is the ultimate form of mental warfare, because it places your enemy in a false state of dominance. And when people feel superior, they stop guarding themselves. They relax. They speak freely. They make mistakes. That's when the real intelligence, the one that never showed itself, begins to tighten the grip. You think this only works in chessboards and courtrooms, but it happens in your office, in your friend group, in your family, in relationships. The man who plays the fool often leaves the table with the most. Why? Because people hand over power to those they don't fear. You've done it. You've ignored the quiet man in the corner, only to realize later he heard everything. You've mocked the quiet intern, only to discover he owns half the company. You've laughed at the wrong face. This is not just about hiding intelligence. It's about becoming strategically invisible. You show your face when it benefits you. You conceal it when it benefits you more. This isn't about lying. It's about silence. Silence is not emptiness. It is calculation. Most people fill silence with noise because they cannot stand the discomfort of not being seen. They seek recognition as if it will keep them alive. But the sharpest men, the Machiavellian kind, have no such hunger. They seek control, not applause. They don't win because they know more. They win because others don't realize what they know. That's how smart people fake stupidity to win. And here's the truth: you could do the same. But first, you'd have to let go of your need to appear intelligent. You'd have to be willing to let people underestimate you, laugh at you, ignore you. You'd have to trade visibility for position. And that is something most men will never do, because they would rather seem strong than be dangerous. They would rather win the room than win the game. But now you know the code. The next time you walk into a room, you'll notice them. The quiet ones, the ones who pretend they don't know, the ones who let others lead. And if you're wise, you'll ask yourself this: are they stupid or are they winning? You don't realize it yet, but the best position in any environment isn't at the head of the table. It's in the shadow of the fool. Not the real fool, but the man who plays the part so convincingly. No one sees the blade behind the smile. When people underestimate you, they offer you something rare, a clear view of their real selves. The man who sees you as inferior will drop his mask. He'll speak unguarded, act unguarded, and treat you as if you're irrelevant. That's when he reveals his patterns, his ego, his soft points, his flaws. You'll learn how he thinks. You'll see what rattles him, and you'll say nothing, because when you speak, you remove doubt. But when you remain silent, you remain undefined. And the undefined figure is always the most dangerous. It becomes projection, fear, confusion. Sun Tzu said, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." Most men never follow this advice because their ego demands proof. But your ego is the leash around your neck. Let it go. Learn to accept being dismissed, the mockery, the silence, the assumption that you are less. Let them assign you the role of idiot. Let them speak freely around you. Let them think they are superior. Because that's when you start writing the real script, not with words, but with awareness. There's a pattern you need to understand in every room. There is a hierarchy not of power, but of perceived power. And the man who plays stupid often floats to the bottom of perception, which frees him to move in all directions. The CEO is watched, the manager is challenged, the expert is questioned, but the quiet fool he is ignored, and that gives him range. He can listen, gather, mimic, and shift with zero resistance. He becomes what Machiavelli called a new prince, one who enters a domain quietly, studies it, and only strikes once he understands its weaknesses from within. Think of the man at work who lets others speak first in every meeting. He rarely interrupts. He nods. He seems to agree with everyone. He plays dumb when asked a difficult question, and then, months later, he's promoted while the loudest guy burns out from politics. How? Because everyone around him was busy talking, defending, arguing, and exposing. He, however, was studying the system, watching power change hands, watching alliances form, watching who gossiped and who folded under pressure. He gathered intel while pretending to be out of the loop. Faking stupidity is not a performance. It's a position, and it must be believable. Don't confuse this with being passive. The strategic fool is not passive, he is active in silence. He is watching everything. And when the moment is right, he doesn't announce himself, he moves. You don't see a knife until it's in your ribs. That's the point. You were taught that if you don't show your capabilities, people won't value you. But here's the real truth: if people value you for what you show, they will also target you for what you show. That's why you must choose: do you want admiration or leverage? Because you can't have both. Admiration puts you on display. Leverage keeps you behind the curtain, pulling strings while others take the blame. You think this is cowardly, then you haven't read history. Julius Caesar once cried in private over the greatness of Alexander the Great. But Caesar didn't chase glory through noise. He faked cooperation, feigned loyalty, and only crossed the Rubicon when every pawn was in place. He acted stupid in public, charming senators, laughing at their jokes, all while preparing the death of the Republic. And you want to win an argument on the internet. You think being the smartest man in the room is power, but in truth, it's exposure. Intelligence that is visible becomes intelligence that is hunted. Every animal in nature knows this. The most venomous snake doesn't hiss. The apex predator doesn't roar. It stays still. It blends in. It waits for the moment you think it's safe, then it strikes. This is not about being fake. It's about mastering timing. You keep showing your hand too early. You keep correcting people. You keep arguing, you keep revealing. You think being real means being transparent. But real intelligence is not transparent. It's opaque, confusing, disarming. Because if you want to be respected for your mind, you will live at the mercy of others' perception. But if you want to control a situation, you must surrender the desire to be seen at all. That is the way of the strategist. You don't need credit. You need control. You don't need to be known. You need to be in position. Every time you speak, ask yourself, does this increase my leverage or reduce it? Every time you show your knowledge, Ask yourself, am I securing power or feeding ego? Because if it's ego, you're playing the wrong game. The true Machiavellian doesn't win through debate. He wins through position, and position is gained not by appearing smarter, but by being forgotten until it's too late. Now look back at your life. How many times have you been underestimated? How many times did you fight to prove them wrong? And how many times did that cost you the advantage? Remember this, the underestimated man is the most dangerous figure in the room, because no one sees him coming, and by the time they do, it's already over. Power doesn't move in straight lines. It flows in silence, through networks, glances, hidden alliances, and yet, you've spent your life thinking it's about being loud, impressive, vocal. You believe the one who speaks the most commands the room. No, the one who speaks least controls the room, not because of what he says, but because of what others assume he knows. This is the silent war of social environments, and you're playing it like a child. You walk into a room trying to impress. You dress for attention, talk to prove your worth, interrupt to showcase knowledge, and with every word, you bleed position. You tell the enemy where you are. You reveal what you value. You announce your weaknesses, all of it to be seen. But the man who fakes stupidity, he does the opposite. He gives you nothing. He speaks when needed, never when provoked. He dresses without signaling. He listens longer than is comfortable. He nods even when he disagrees. Not because he's passive, but because your ego is the bait he uses to map your psychology. Every laugh, every insult, every arrogant assumption, he collects it, and he says nothing. That's how control works. You assume people in power are the ones giving commands, but the ones giving commands are usually responding to unseen pressures. Influence does not require status. It requires placement. A sharp man who's underestimated can manipulate a group from the lowest visible rank if he understands how the others see themselves. Let me show you how this works in real life. Imagine you're in a corporate setting. There's a team of managers, all fighting for visibility. They interrupt each other, one-ups, small competitions, strategic praises to curry favor with upper leadership. But there's one man in the back, quiet, assistant role, never speaks unless spoken to, takes notes. People joke in front of him, he laughs. They forget he's even in the room. What they don't know is this: he hears everything. He understands the personalities, the rivalries, the lies behind the smiles. He sees the gaps in performance. He notices which manager is insecure, which one has dirty secrets, which one flatters the boss to cover mediocrity. Then one day, the company reshuffles. A promotion opens. That quiet man, he's the only one with no enemies. No one saw him as a threat. He's trusted, respected, but not feared. So no one sabotages him. And when he moves up, no one even knows how it happened. They ask, wait, him too late. You see, this is the real advantage of being underestimated. It grants you freedom of movement. Because when others think you're stupid, they don't block your path. They don't guard their positions. They don't see you coming. That's how snakes enter the garden. Now look at relationships. Most men try to impress too early. They brag, overshare, list their achievements, reveal their intentions. And women, being biologically attuned to social status and self-control, immediately assess their psychological stability. The man who seeks to be understood too quickly is seen as weak, but the man who is unreadable, calmly present, asking more than he shares, not overly eager, not overly restrained, confuses her. He holds power not by acting dominant, but by being ambiguous, unclear, unpredictable. That's tension. And tension is leverage, because it forces others to reveal themselves before you do. Machiavelli wrote, "Men should be either caressed or crushed." But you try to negotiate, explain, justify. You want to be seen as good, but in wanting to be good, you become exposed. Power doesn't explain itself. Power doesn't seek validation. Power doesn't teach, it allows you to believe you're in control while it waits. That's what faking stupidity does. It creates a vacuum, one others fill with projection. People don't know who you are, so they guess. And in guessing, they expose their own minds. One man will think you're beneath him, and he'll show you how little discipline he has. Another will try to use you and reveal what he wants most. And all the while, you are gathering data, quietly, without triggering alarm, without being seen as a threat, until you're ready to act. But you still don't get it. Do you? You think faking stupidity is weakness. You think it's deception. It's not. It's control over yourself. And self-control is the highest form of power. Because anyone can react. Anyone can defend their intelligence. But to sit silently while being underestimated, that takes strength. You must be willing to let your name be forgotten. You must be ready to walk through life unrecognized. Because the moment they define you, they contain you. And your job, if you want real power, is to be uncontainable. Now ask yourself this. What rooms have you been too eager to impress? What situations have you lost because you spoke too soon? How many enemies have you created simply because you had to show you were smart? Think carefully. Because the men who dominate the world, they already know what you're about to say, and they will use it against you. But you, if you can master the silence, will become the kind of man who speaks only when it breaks the pattern. The kind of man no one sees coming. The kind of man who wins while they're still laughing at your silence. You think stupidity is a disadvantage? But in the right hands, it's a weapon. Not the kind that strikes, the kind that lures. You've been taught to fear ignorance to avoid appearing slow, unprepared, or confused. But the most manipulative minds use apparent ignorance to their advantage. They ask questions they already know the answers to. They make mistakes that trigger confessions. They feign weakness to bait overconfidence. Because here's what no one told you when people feel smarter than you. They want to help you. They want to correct you. They want to guide you. And in doing so, they reveal their strategies. That's how faking stupidity becomes psychological warfare. You're not deceiving them. You're inviting them to expose themselves, their values, their knowledge gaps, their internal logic. You're handing them a stage and watching how they perform when they think no one's watching critically. It's interrogation without force, seduction without charm. Now, if you want to use this deliberately and not just as theory, you need structure. Here are the 3 primary tools of weaponized stupidity. 1. The disarming question. The first move of the underestimated man is inquiry. Ask a question that makes you seem lost, simple, out of your depth. In a negotiation, ask, "I'm not sure how this part works. Could you explain it again?" The other person relaxes. Their guard lowers. They shift into a role of teacher, which, by definition, places them above you. Now they want to help. They want to appear competent, and they start revealing margins, strategy, pressures, things they would never say if they believed you were a competitor. You didn't lie. You just let them fill in the silence. The trick is this: never correct them even when they're wrong. Let their confidence grow. Because when people feel too secure, they stop filtering. That's when you strike not verbally, not emotionally, but structurally. You use what they gave you later, when it counts, when they can't take it back. 2. The visible mistake. This one is more advanced but lethal in social dominance battles. Make a small, visible mistake on purpose. Forget a name, misquote a figure, act confused by a basic concept. The people in the room will pounce. They'll correct you with enthusiasm. Why? Because pointing out your error boosts their own sense of superiority. Let them, even thank them, because now they think they've won. They think they're smarter. They think they've seen the limits of your intellect. Good, because when it really matters, they won't expect you to act decisively. They'll assume you need guidance. They'll overlook you until your real move destroys them. Let them win the battle. You're there for the war. 3. The invisible insight. This is the crown jewel of the method. It's when you share a powerful idea, but in a way that sounds like speculation. You phrase truth as curiosity. Instead of saying, "They're clearly trying to manipulate the board," you say, "Do you think they might be trying to shift the board dynamic a little?" You plant the seed without triggering defense. People don't resist suggestions the same way they resist assertions. By sounding uncertain, you bypass their ego. The stupid man never tells. He wonders. And by wondering aloud, He turns truth into a question and lets the room draw its own conclusion. That's control. Now let's turn this to relationships. Imagine you're dealing with someone manipulative, someone who thrives on emotional advantage. If you act smart, defensive. Assertive, you confirm the game. But if you appear emotionally clueless, you confuse them. They throw bait, you don't bite. They test you, you act oblivious. They say something designed to get a reaction and you blink slowly, as if it didn't register. You become a black hole, a space where no reaction returns, where no mind games land. They will either escalate or withdraw. Let them. You're not playing to win attention. You're playing to remove control. This is where your discipline will be tested. Because faking stupidity isn't easy. You'll be tempted to prove yourself. You'll want to defend your name. You'll want to show them you're smarter than they think. Resist. The Machiavellian strategist plays a longer game. He knows every insult handed to him is a confession. Every mockery is a weakness. Every dismissal is permission to move undetected. You must become a mirror. Reflect nothing, reveal nothing. That is how you become untouchable. Do you think the most powerful men in history walked into rooms flaunting their genius? No. They studied. They blended. They allowed others to feel like kings while they built kingdoms beneath the surface. Faking stupidity is not about pretending to be someone else. It's about creating distance between who you are and what they think you are. So you can move without resistance. So you can act without prediction. So you can win without warning. But let me give you a warning of my own. If you do this without control, you will lose yourself. If you become so committed to your disguise that you forget your mission, you'll become the fool. This is not about inauthenticity. It's about containment. You must know who you are, know what you're capable of, and seal it shut until the world gives you a reason to open it. Never reveal your full hand, not even to those closest, because the moment someone believes they understand you, they start building a cage around you. And once you are caged, no matter how intelligent you are, you've already lost. So play the fool. Smile when they mock you. Let them think they've won. And when the time comes, move like the man no one saw coming. Strike like the fool who never was. You've faked stupidity. You've gathered information. You've placed yourself below their radar. But now you ask, what next? Here is where most men fail. They learn to stay quiet. They become invisible, but they never act. They confuse stillness with safety. But strategy is not safety. Strategy is movement in the shadows, and it means nothing without decisive execution. Faking stupidity only matters if you have a move no one sees coming. So here's your final lesson. Don't reveal, don't correct, don't defend, just strike. Not with rage, not with pride, but with finality. You've spent months watching. You've heard the whispers. You've mapped the hierarchy of your environment. You know who controls what, who lies, who pretends, who folds. Now, you create impact without warning, and that impact in every environment must be surgical. No drama, no speeches, no grand declaration, only results. You get promoted without announcing your ambition. You walk away from emotional traps without explanation. You dismantle a rival's influence with one silent, accurate move while they're still explaining themselves in meetings. This is how you become untouchable. You stop defending your intelligence. You stop trying to be understood. You stop seeking justice or fairness, because power doesn't care who's right. It only respects who moves in silence. Let me show you what this looks like in business. You let your competitors brag. You let them take credit. You let them overshare. You agree in public, support in meetings, applaud their ideas. Then you present a version of the idea cleaner, sharper, better timed directly to the person who matters. You don't say, "This was my idea" first. You say, "I noticed an opportunity that might help us execute this faster." That's the difference between being correct and being effective. One feeds your ego, the other builds your empire. In relationships, you don't react when someone provokes. You don't match their drama. You don't chase or explain or plead. You say less. You leave earlier. You pull back without noise. They will talk. Let them. Silence is your verdict. They can scream. beg, accuse, but the fact that you didn't respond will haunt them more than anything you could have said. And if they ever come back, you don't need to punish them. You've already left. In status games, you let the clowns perform. You let the ambitious expose themselves. You keep your ambition private. You stay close to power not by bragging, but by being useful, reliable, necessary. Then, when the environment shifts, and it always does, you're the only one with clean hands and open paths. The stage belongs to the fool, but the game belongs to the ghost. Machiavelli wrote, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." So don't chase validation. Let the room talk. Let the room laugh. Let the room underestimate you. Then become the reason the room changes. That's the Machiavellian final form, visible incompetence, invisible power. And now, you need to hear this. You were raised in a world that told you to be understood, to be nice, to explain yourself, to prove yourself. But every time you did, you gave away something: mystery, tension, control. Your life became negotiation. But the man who masters invisibility doesn't negotiate. He places others in a state of comfort while he rewrites the rules in silence. You don't do this to harm. You do this to escape dependence. Because when others cannot read you, they cannot own you. And that, more than intelligence, more than strength, more than charm, is what makes you untouchable. No one knows what you'll do next. No one knows what you think. And because they don't know, they respect. Not the loud kind of respect, the quiet kind. The kind that keeps your name out of their mouths, the kind that builds space around you, the kind that forces people to prepare for what you might do even if you do nothing at all. That's power. Not being feared through threats, being feared through stillness. But don't misunderstand this. Faking stupidity is not a lifestyle. It's a tool. Use it when you need to disarm. Use it when you need to observe. Use it when revealing your intelligence would cost you more than it gains. Then, when the moment comes, discard the mask. Reveal yourself in the result, not in the explanation. Never say, "See, I was right." Just win. And leave them confused. Leave them talking. Leave them wondering how the fool they ignored became the one who walks away holding everything. Because if you've played this right, you were never the fool. You were the architect of the entire game. Now disappear again, before they ever figure it out.